The rain battered Lila's small apartment window as she stared at the divorce papers on her kitchen table. Her heart felt like it had been ripped out and stomped on. 5 years of marriage, countless sacrifices, and it all ended with a single sentence from Mark: "I found someone better, Lila. Someone who fits my new life." That someone was Vanessa, a wealthy, glamorous woman who'd swept into Mark's life during his recent promotion at the tech firm. Lila, a schoolteacher with a modest income, couldn't compete with Vanessa's designer dresses or her penthouse lifestyle. The memory of Mark's smug grin as he left her for Vanessa burned in her mind. But Lila wasn't broken. Not yet. That night, as thunder roared, she made a vow to herself: she'd rise above this. She'd show Mark, Vanessa, and everyone who'd ever doubted her that she was more than enough. The spark in her chest wasn't just anger, it was ambition. She didn't know how, but she'd build a life so extraordinary that Mark's betrayal would feel like a distant, insignificant blip. Lila started small. She took a second job tutoring online, saving every penny. She spent her nights researching investments, learning about real estate, and studying success stories of women who'd turned their lives around. Sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. Her apartment became a war room, walls covered with notes, budgets, and motivational quotes. "You are your own hero," she scribbled on a post-it, sticking it to her mirror. Every time she felt like giving up, she'd look at it and keep going. One evening, while scrolling through a real estate forum, she stumbled across an opportunity: a fixer-upper house in a gentrifying neighborhood, listed at a bargain. It was risky, her savings were barely enough for the down payment, but something told her this was her chance. She toured the crumbling property, its cracked walls and leaky roof screaming potential. Lila saw beyond the decay. She saw a future. With every ounce of courage, she signed the papers, pouring her heart into a dream no one else believed in. The house was a disaster. Lila spent her weekends covered in paint and sawdust, learning to fix pipes from YouTube tutorials and hauling debris to the curb. Her hands blistered, her back ached, but every nail she hammered felt like a step toward reclaiming her life. Neighbors raised eyebrows, whispering about the divorced teacher who thought she could flip a house. Lila ignored them. She wasn't doing this for their approval. Her tutoring gigs expanded, and she started a side hustle creating educational content online. Her videos, simple, heartfelt lessons for struggling students, began gaining traction. A few hundred views turned into thousands. Ad revenue trickled in, then flowed. Lila reinvested every cent into the house, upgrading the kitchen, installing hardwood floors, and transforming the backyard into a cozy oasis. She wasn't just rebuilding a house, she was rebuilding herself. Mark, meanwhile, was living large with Vanessa. Lila heard through mutual friends that they'd moved into a sleek downtown condo, throwing lavish parties. She didn't let it faze her. Instead, she used the sting of those updates as fuel. Late at night, when exhaustion threatened to win, she'd picture Mark's face when he saw what she'd become. That image kept her going. By month 6, the house was unrecognizable. Modern fixtures gleamed, and the once dilapidated property now rivaled the upscale homes nearby. Lila's online channel had grown too, with sponsorships rolling in. She was no longer just a teacher, she was an entrepreneur. But the grind wasn't over. She listed the house for sale, her heart pounding. If this worked, she'd clear enough profit to change her life forever. If it didn't, she'd lose everything. The open house was a gamble. Lila had poured her savings and soul into the property, and now it was time to see if her vision would pay off. She hired a realtor, a sharp woman named Priya who believed in Lila's dream. The house drew crowds, families, investors, even curious neighbors who couldn't believe the transformation. Offers poured in, each higher than the last. By the end of the weekend, Lila had a deal, $2.5 million, nearly triple what she'd paid. When she signed the final papers, tears stung her eyes, not from sadness, but from pride. She'd done this alone. The money wasn't just a number, it was proof of her strength. She paid off her debts, invested in a small apartment building for passive income, and started planning her next move. Lila wasn't stopping here. She enrolled in a business course, determined to grow her online platform into a full-fledged education empire. Word of her success spread. Old friends reached out, amazed at her transformation. Some apologized for doubting her. Lila smiled politely but kept her distance. She didn't need their validation anymore. Her focus was on the future, new properties, bigger investments, and a life built on her terms. But one question lingered: would Mark ever know? She didn't care. Well, maybe a little. A year after the divorce, Lila attended a mutual friend's wedding. She hadn't planned to see Mark, but there he was, arm around Vanessa, looking smug as ever. Lila wore a sleek black dress, her confidence radiating. She'd heard rumors that Mark's relationship was rocky, Vanessa's wealth came with control, and he was struggling to keep up. When he spotted Lila, his jaw tightened. She looked different. Stronger. Untouchable. Lila, you look good, he stammered. Vanessa's eyes narrowed, sizing her up. Lila smiled, calm and unshaken. Thanks, Mark. Life's been good. She didn't mention the house, the money, or her growing business. She didn't need to. Her presence said enough. As she walked away, she felt his stare burning into her back. For the first time, she didn't feel small. She felt powerful. Later, a friend let slip that Mark had asked about her. He'd heard about the $2.5 million house and was stunned. Lila laughed softly. She hadn't orchestrated this moment, but it felt like sweet, quiet revenge. Her success wasn't about him anymore, it was about her. Still, knowing he was rattled? That was a bonus. With her newfound wealth, Lila launched an online education platform, Learn with Lila, targeting underserved students. Her videos were a hit, blending practical advice with her story of resilience. She hired a small team, rented an office, and poured her energy into creating free resources for kids who couldn't afford tutors. The platform grew, earning praise from educators and parents alike. Lila wasn't just making money, she was making a difference. She also bought another fixer-upper, this time with confidence. Flipping houses became her side passion, each project a testament to her ability to turn broken things into something beautiful. Her apartment building was generating steady income, and she was living a life she'd never imagined during those dark days after the divorce. Mark's name came up less and less. When it did, Lila felt nothing, no anger, no pain. Just indifference. She'd outgrown him. Her world was bigger now, filled with purpose and possibility. But life had a way of throwing curveballs, and Lila was about to face one she never saw coming. One evening, Lila's phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. It was Mark. His voice was shaky, nothing like the confident man who'd left her. Lila, I messed up, he said. Vanessa had kicked him out, and his career was crumbling. He'd heard about Lila's success and wanted to talk. Lila listened, her heart steady. She didn't owe him anything. I'm sorry, Mark, she said calmly. I've moved on. She hung up, feeling lighter than ever. His call wasn't a temptation, it was closure. Lila didn't need his apologies or his regrets. She'd built her empire without him, and she'd keep building with or without anyone's approval. Her platform grew, landing her a TED Talk invitation. Lila stood on stage, sharing her story with thousands. You don't need permission to rebuild, she told the audience. You just need courage. The crowd roared, and Lila knew she'd found her calling. Lila's platform expanded globally, with partnerships in schools across 3 continents. She hired more staff, including a brilliant coder who built an app for her platform. Downloads soared, and investors started calling. Lila was cautious, she'd learned to trust her instincts over flashy promises. She chose a small but passionate firm to fund her next phase, keeping control of her vision. Her second house flip sold for $3 million, cementing her reputation as a savvy investor. She started mentoring other women, teaching them how to invest in real estate and take charge of their finances. Her workshop sold out, and her story became a beacon for anyone who'd ever been underestimated. Lila's life was full, but she made time for herself too. She traveled, explored new hobbies, and even started dating again, not because she needed someone, but because she wanted to share her joy. Her heart was open, but her standards were high. She'd never settle again. At a real estate conference, Lila ran into Vanessa. The woman who'd once looked at her with pity now seemed uneasy. Vanessa was there to pitch a failing project, while Lila was a keynote speaker. Their paths crossed in a quiet hallway, and Vanessa tried to make small talk. Lila was polite but firm. "I'm not here to dwell on the past," she said, walking away. Later, she heard Vanessa's pitch had flopped. Lila didn't gloat, she didn't need to. Her success spoke louder than any words could. She was living proof that you could rise above betrayal, doubt, and hardship. Her focus was on the future, not on settling old scores. That night, Lila toasted with her team, celebrating a new milestone. Her platform had reached 1 million users. She looked around at the people who'd believed in her, and her heart swelled. This was her family now, chosen, not inherited. Lila's story inspired a movement. Women across the country started their own businesses, flipped their own houses, and shared their stories under the hashtag #ComebackQueen. Lila launched a foundation to fund education for low-income students, ensuring her success would lift others. She wrote a book, From Ashes to Empire, which became a bestseller. She bought a dream home, not to prove anything, but because she deserved it. The $2.5 million house that started it all was now a distant memory, replaced by a sprawling estate with gardens and a view of the city skyline. Lila walked through it daily, grateful for every step of her journey. Mark faded into obscurity. Lila heard he'd moved to a small town, starting over. She wished him well, but he was no longer part of her story. Her life was about impact now, about showing the world what was possible when you refused to give up. On the anniversary of her divorce, Lila hosted a gala for her foundation. The room was filled with supporters, students, and women she'd mentored. She stood at the podium, her voice steady, and shared her journey one last time. "I was left for someone better," she said, pausing as the crowd leaned in. "But I became the best version of myself. And that's the real victory." The applause was deafening. Lila looked out at the faces, some familiar, some new, and felt complete. She'd turned pain into power, betrayal into triumph. Her $2.5 million house had been the start, but her legacy was so much bigger. She was no longer defined by what she'd lost, but by what she'd built. As the night ended, Lila stood on her balcony, city lights twinkling below. She didn't need anyone's approval, not Mark's, not Vanessa's, not the world's. She was enough. And she'd keep proving it, one dream at a time.